You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, oh, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, oh, I worship you. You're a way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You're a way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, oh, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you, oh, I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you, oh, I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you, oh, I worship you. Oh, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. That is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, 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 that is who you are. 'Cause you're waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You're waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
Yes, Lord, that is who you are. We just worship you this evening, Lord.
Cause you're a waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. That is who you are. Waymaker, must keep light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
Hey guys and girls, it's been a while since we've met on a Friday evening for youth, and I can quite honestly say I've been missing it. I hope you guys are keeping safe at home. I just thought I would use this opportunity to share a bit of my life with you, share a bit of my testimony. I know that it is relevant. It's relevant to everyone really, because it's actually a story of hope and restoration and choices that we make throughout our life, because we are all faced with choices, big choices, small choices, but we are all faced with them, and ultimately there are consequences to the decisions that we make with these choices. And so over the next 2 weeks, I'd like to share with you a bit about my life, and yeah, there's some of you that know my story, and there's some of you that are watching this that I've probably never met before. Maybe you've received a link via a friend on WhatsApp or whatever. It's great to have you here, and maybe you can share this with your friends as well. And so, basically, I grew up. I was a pretty average kid. I wasn't academic as such. I wasn't a sporty kid either. I was pretty average, as I said, and I grew up in a normal household. And so it just my story goes to show that you don't need a bad upbringing to make bad decisions, because I made a lot of bad decisions as I grew up, starting all the way from my schooling years. And so just some of those decisions were the friends that I chose. And it seems like such a small decision, but actually these things have a snowball effect. One bad decision leads to another bad decision and another bad decision, and so it goes. And so I ended up choosing the wrong friends, and so you hang around with the wrong friends, you then make further bad decisions. I started drinking and smoking towards the end of my schooling, and I ended up actually leaving school earlier before I finished matric. I did go on to get my matric, but that was a few years later. So I also ended up in all of that starting to date a girl that wasn't a Christian, and that wasn't. I grew up in a Christian home, so it wasn't. They talk about being unequally yoked. We didn't have the same sort of priorities. And so it didn't kind of work. We ended up living together, moving in together, and having children together. We weren't married, and so as you can see, the bad decisions started rolling in. So we ended up relying on my parents for support quite a lot. And this was in my early 20s. We moved from Cape Town to Bloemfontein. My parents were living in Bloemfontein at the time. And so I got a job in hospitality, and the hours obviously weren't great, and carried on drinking, and basically one evening, I remember drugs were being passed around, specifically cocaine. Now I'd always been scared of drugs growing up in school, and I'd heard of people using it, but I would stay away from it. I really wasn't interested. And yes, I did drink and smoke, but drugs were a no-no. I was scared of it. But I decided, let me just try it once. And you know how they say, if you try it once, you can get addicted, so don't try it. And I thought, well, let me just try it once. So I did, and it really was as they said. I remember it was a Thursday evening that I had tried it, and by the next Thursday, I wanted to use again. And the pull was so strong that I actually couldn't say no again, and I actually went out and looked for it to get hold of it, and that was just a week later, and within 2-3 months, I was almost using every single day, right to the peak of my addiction, where I was using multiple times all day, every day, and obviously it's not easy to support that kind of habit financially. And so I turned to a life of crime. I turned to stealing from my bosses, and right up to the point where I ended up stealing a car, and so I was arrested for theft of vehicle, and that case went on in court for quite some time. Um, After that had all blown over, I decided to leave Bloemfontein and move to East London. To sort of get away from from these bad decisions that I had made, and I basically brought it all with me. You know, I tried to get away from this addiction on my own strength, and that just wasn't going to work. I was really struggling. I was really broken. It was taking a toll on my health, and and um, and so I thought that things would get better in a new city, but clearly it didn't. To escalate it even further. I started stealing again from my bosses, larger amounts to support an addiction that had just carried on and on and on, and eaten away at me, my health, my family, and yeah, it was just I was broken. I remember one night I was at my parents' house, and I went down on my knees, and I was crying, and I prayed out to God, and I just asked him. I said to him, "You need to take me out of this. You need to take me out of this, because if you're not going to take me out of this, I'm actually going to stop trying." I was tired of trying, because the more I tried to get away from the pull of this addiction, the worse it got. I was losing hope in myself. I was losing hope in the fact that I could overcome it. And so I asked God to just take this away from me, get me out of this. And I was in tears. And a few days later, I was going into work, and I left for work that day knowing that I probably wasn't going to be coming home. That things were coming to a head. This was like my rock bottom. And my boss had been asking questions about the money that I was taking and stealing and covering up, and basically everything had come to a head that day. And I got to work, and my boss had asked me again about the money. I knew it was going to come out. Everything was going to come out in the open, and I was ashamed of the things that I had done. So I called a friend of mine who, in fact, actually he called me that morning, and he said, "Is everything all right? I haven't heard from you in a while." And I said, "No, everything's fine." I put down the phone. I sat down at my desk, and I just put my head down on the table, and I thought, everything's not going to be fine. I called him back, and I said to him, "I know I just said everything is fine, but it's not. Please, can you come?" So he came to my work, and I needed his help to explain to my boss what I had done. I was ashamed, and my world was falling apart already. And so that day I was arrested. I was taken away, and it was the beginning of restoration. I think I'll go further into that next week. So, but yeah, all I can say is it was the beginning of restoration. And so, I do hope that you share this clip with family, with friends. Maybe you know somebody who's struggling with addiction themselves. Maybe you can share it with them as well. Yeah, I hope to see you next week, next Friday. Cheers.